everyone, I hope you're well and welcome to the channel. Now in this week's video we're going to be talking about the fantastic angler that is Allans Stagg. Now Allans Stagg is someone who's a brilliant all-rounder. This chap has got won the Drennan Cup. He's caught Bream over 18 pound, roach over 3 pound, monstrous barbel, huge carp from abroad, and he's one of the industry's nice guys. He's very humble, but he's got such a wealth of knowledge. It's a really good interview. We're also going to be running a competition on NX baits. So we've just brought out a new range of pop-ups, fluoro pop-ups, in the cherry and chocolate flavour, and it will be coming in pink, white and yellow. So we're going to be having a little bit of a look at those in a bit more detail, and also they're up for grabs in the competition, so I'll tell you a little bit more about that later on. So first things first, let's get over to Gardner HQ. Let's do that interview of Allans. Hope you enjoy it, sit back and relax. See you then. Hi Alan, thanks very much for your time today. It's great to come here to Gardner HQ, and I appreciate you're a busy man, so thank you. How are you?
No, really well, thanks. Had a really good Christmas and New Year, and we're sort of just into January now, aren't we? And the weather's sort of very wet at the moment, but fishing wise the conditions are really good.
Brilliant.
Really enjoying it, getting out on the bank load, so life's pretty good at the moment.
Fantastic. Well, obviously I've seen on social media some of these fantastic fish you've been catching, and I suppose it's fair to say that you're a fantastic all-rounder, catching Specimen, Bream, Barbel, all these various species. And I guess for me as a carp angler coming into this, I'm intrigued really, because from a carp angler or anyone who focuses on one species, you've got to learn so much about one species. For example, you go to a new carp lake, you've got to choose a carp lake with the fish in it you want to catch, the right pressure, what it's going to do to the fish, where they're going to head in strong southwesterly, what bait rigs. Now that's just for one species, and building that experience for that one species. You can do it for 5 or 6, and I think for me that's fantastic. I mean, tell us a little bit more about how you started in fishing to begin with, where all this started really.
Well, I think like you hit the nail on the head there about sort of the different species. I began way back when I was sort of like 12 or 13. So I started quite late really, and I think the first fish I caught was a gudgeon on the River Kennet.
Brilliant. And
I still remember it really vividly, swinging it in and thinking it was an absolute monster when you look back, and it's relatively small, but really good memories, and I think that's what a lot of it's about. And I think that when you take it back and when you fish for lots of different species, that apprenticeship that you did through all of those years really stands you in good stead. You learn how to plumb a float, to shot it, how to feed a fish, etc, and I think that stands you in really good stead for the fishing that I'm doing now, and it's a really good sort of steps for people to take really.
Fantastic. So what was the sort of route to getting to these sort of specimen fish? So did you start with the gudgeon and then move on to catch a few roach, and then thought, I've seen someone catch a bream, I'll go for those? How did it all?
Yeah, well, I learned sort of really well on the commercial fisheries, fishing for carp. They were starting to sort of, those commercial fisheries were starting to sort of expand then. Yeah. And they were, the perfect place to learn your field really. How to catapult, how to bait, how to feed, how much to feed, etc. And the conditions and the best conditions to go in. And I just think that that stood me in a really good stead, and then sort of naturally you catch a 2 pound carp and a 3 pound carp, and then you want bigger and bigger. And then that's how it progressed, and then you want to catch up with your first barbel or your first chub or your perch, and then things sort of get out of hand after a while, but really good memories.
Brilliant. So it's fair to say you've had a really good season. Do you want to sort of break it down between the barbel, chub, pike and bream? Because of course you've caught so many brilliant fish. Do you want to tell us about your season?
It's been a really good season. Way better than I could have ever expected. But I think the most important thing, putting the fish weights aside, is I've really enjoyed it. And that's what matters the most to me. You can go and catch, or you spend loads of time catching whatever, but if you don't enjoy it, there's no point in it. In my eyes, so I think looking back, the memories have been absolutely incredible, and it's kind of rolled on from last year really. I went to Chew sort of October, November of what that'd be 2021, 22, and that was just incredible. I did quite a bit of time up there, but I really got into it and had a couple of really nice pike, and then things kind of spiraled from there. And I think often you get on a little roll and then you get more confident and you then put more effort in, and then things sort of roll on from there. And I caught some really nice chub from the Thames at the back end of the season, and a nice barbel too. And I kind of started the spring with a lot of confidence, and I really wanted to catch a big bream from a certain venue. After the Thames fishing, I kind of sat down and I wanted to fish completely new venues that I hadn't fished before, so it was all new, it'd all be exciting. And I went and fished a place for a big bream, gravel pit, sort of 20-25 acres. Not many fish, so I knew that I wasn't going to get too many bites, but I hoped that I'd get the right bite. And that came sort of on my sort of 8th or 9th night. Fished sort of 6 or 7 nights, not a lot happened. Felt I needed to change things up a little bit, and then I changed things up and caught just a ridiculous fish.
So how big was that fish?
That one's 18.4.
Oh,
I can still remember it, the water's really clear. I can still vividly remember it coming up in the water under the torchlight, and it just looked colossal.
Brilliant. So what kind of setup would you use? What would be your rig for that kind of
approach? That venue was quite tricky presentation wise, because there was a lot of silkweed on the bottom, but it would move with the undertow. So you would find a clear area, a small clear area, but you'd reel in the morning and your rigs would be covered in silkweed and mast. So I just fished method feeder tactics, something that I'd learned years and years and years ago, and that sort of goes back to what we mentioned sort of at the start of this video. Those sort of things really help you, and just a little pop up over the top of it. And I lost the bream a couple of hours before, and I was a bit gutted, but that also on the plus point, you knew you were doing things right then, and you know that led to that one. And that I still remember that fish sitting in the bottom of the landing net, and it was a 42-inch net, and it wouldn't sit in the bottom of it. That gives you an idea of how big it was, but just incredible and really good memories again.
Fantastic. So yeah, carry on with this season. So
the tench fishing was really difficult. I fished a really big gravel pit. I caught one tench and really struggled on there. But I've always wanted to fish the Hampshire Avon for chub and barbel. That's been like a bucket list thing of mine for a long, long time. When you read sort of when you're younger about all the great anglers that fish the Hampshire Avon, it's one of those places that I've always wanted to go to. So I did some chub fishing in there in September. That was really incredible, and I learnt a lot about the river. It's very different to like the Loddon and the Thames. I caught some really nice chub, and then I wanted to catch my first Avon barbel, and that was a big thing for me. And I started fishing a stretch that did have a very big fish in there. I wasn't targeting it, but you never know.
Is it quite heavily pressured? I mean, were you seeing a lot of other anglers there? Because it's a big river, so...
There's a big turnover of anglers on that stretch.
I imagine,
and you do have to be on your A game. Those guys on there aren't silly.
So there's a lot of pre-baiting going on, you imagine, and you're...
Yeah, turnover of anglers more than pre-baiting probably,
right.
But because you never know whether you can get back in the same swim. But I caught my first Avon double, caught a few smaller ones as well, and then one evening I got back into a swim that felt was right, you know, the area felt good, and I had a bite, had a chub pretty early on, and then I got the rod back out, had a bite, and I knew straight away it was a big fish.
Oh, fantastic.
And it came up in the torchlight, and I knew it was going to be the one, and that rolled in the net. That fish was 34.5 inches long.
Jeez.
And but immaculate, which, you know, the fish of that age, you know, it shows you how well they look after them. That one weighed 18.1, which was just blew my mind. That's that above and beyond what I ever thought I was going to catch.
Fantastic.
And then going into the winter, I went back on the Thames. I love the Thames, you never know what you're going to hook. And when you're fishing those stretches, anything's possible. And I had lots of nice barbel up to just over 14. Few braces of doubles, and I had a 7-11 chub, which was a nice fish. Big frame fish, quite short. I imagine that fish is well over £8 now, but a real nice nice.
And what sort of setup would you traditionally use for your barbel fishing? I know it probably depends on the situation.
On the Avon, I fish very differently to the Thames. They're very, very different rivers. So the Avon is quite a weedy river at that sort of time. I fished in September. So you're having to fish like the small gravel areas. It was all about rig placements and line lay and trap fishing, really. Like, not too dissimilar to the way that people would trap fish for carp, but just thinking about it a little bit more. Thinking about how you line, how the fish might sort of approach the rig, etc. But the Thames is very, very different. You know, you're fishing, you know, mid-river. It's a powerful river. They're big fish. You know.
Do you have, you know, in the specialist side of things, obviously come carp background. In terms of hook lengths, what sort of hook length were you using for that? Were you use any sort of fluorocarbon to keep it hidden, or would you use it?
On the Thames, I quite like to use like a fluorocarbon boom section and a very short, like it's a combi link basically, so a nice little braided section off the back of it, and then just a big point hook like our wide gate talon tips. I never leave home without them. They're very sharp and they're the perfect river hook.
So I suppose because it's got that big point, the gravel element isn't going to...
They're very sharp, but they're very strong. And it's important, I think, when you're specimen fishing or you're an all-rounder, you're fishing venues that have big fish in, you've got to use the right tackle because you know you can't afford to make any mistakes. So that was really good. And then recently, the Christmas period's just been really good. We've had a massive weather change again, and that's what the years my fishing's been really based around this year. Is the weather changes have made a huge difference. And I went back on the Avon over the Christmas. Always wanted to catch a big Avon roach, and loads of pitched of them over the years, and had a few trips and managed a fish that weighed a fraction, half an ounce over £3, which I couldn't believe it when it popped up.
Well done, that's fantastic.
Big fish. That was really nice. And then a few days later after Christmas, went after the Barbel. Conditions were great, Avon was rising, temperatures were amazing. Dropped into a swim, fishing near bank, had a 13.6, and then went back the next night thinking it got me off going out at 16.4. So, but they're amazing fish. Those Avon fish look beautiful. They're most amazing looking creatures. So, you know, you're sitting in, you know, you're wading through your swims and stuff, but to get, you know, the water to get to them, but it's worth it. Absolutely worth it.
Cool. That's some fishing you've had there, Alan. Okay, well thank you for the update on how your fishing's going. Obviously you've caught some fantastic fish there. So we're going to change it up a little bit now, and one of the questions I always like to ask is about scariest moment on the bank. We've all probably had one or two over the years. Can you think of one, Alan?
I don't think I've had anything that scary, really. I've had some disasters, but nothing.
Let's go with the disaster, Alan.
Really, we've all had disasters, haven't we? Flat tyres. Just those moments where you think, what am I doing wrong? What am I doing here? But nothing really too scary, I think.
Okay. Have you got perhaps one that's the funniest one you can think of, whether it was you or someone else you were fishing with, or someone slipping up, or losing the fish of a lifetime because they did something silly?
I've seen people falling and you know, all that kind of thing, go above their waders and stuff, but nothing sort of,
Okay. No, that's fine. So this is the quick fire round, so I'm going to ask you a series of questions. Obviously just answer them as quick as you can as soon as they come to your head. So you've got 1 day left to fish. What species would you target and with what method?
I think it'd be barbel fishing on Hampshire Avon.
Yeah, and what method would you choose?
You'd be using short links and a lead, I think.
Okay. Favourite pattern of hooks for barbel?
Kind
of touched on that already a little bit.
Wide gapes, yeah, brilliant.
Top tip for big chub?
Fish venues that hold them.
Yeah, it's a simple thing, but sometimes people, yeah. Favourite hook length for chub and barbel? Again, kind of touched on this one earlier, but so it'll be that sort of fluorocarbon type combi link type setup.
100%.
Okay, favourite food for an overnighter?
Pizza.
Pizza, good.
Definitely pizza.
So you've obviously caught quite a few fish. What is your most memorable capture? Would it have been the first fish you caught, going all back those years, or would it have been something more recent?
Probably either the Hampshire Avon roach from this year or the Hampshire Avon barbel.
Fantastic.
I would like to decide.
Favourite approach for big pike?
It's got to be float fishing. Love watching a float.
Yeah.
Whether it's on like a river and you're roving, or whether you're on a boat on a reservoir, watching that float slide along the surface is pretty special.
Okay, and then in terms of, well, you kind of answered this one as well, but favourite way to fish, feeder or float?
Feeder.
Feeder, okay, so float for
only
pike,
because
feeder for...
it's, when you look at the wide range of species, I think it's just a little bit more effective, but enjoyable to float.
Okay. For carp now, pop-ups or bottom baits?
Oh, that's got to be a pop-up.
Okay. Favourite rig for carp fishing?
It's got to be a hinge stiff.
Okay. And if you had an angler that you looked up to, what would be your favourite angler if you put on the spot? Past or present?
There's so many good specimen anglers that are from back in the day or current.
Too many to mention.
There's a lot of really, really good ones, especially when you look back at like the angling times when I used to read it when I was young. Terry Lampard, for example, absolute, incredible angler. So let's go with Terry Lampard.
Okay. So a couple of questions now from our viewers. So James Way from Reading was asking about chub in particular. Which parts of rivers do you look for the chub, and your favourite bait?
So my favourite bait would depend on the water conditions. If it was clear, I'd go with maggots if there wasn't too many small fish around. If anything else, it'd just be straight boilie approach. And then what I look for, cover, slack areas, but more importantly a venue that's got them, because if it's not got them, you can't catch them.
Okay. So Jess Clark from Swindon's asking about barbel. Again, you've kind of touched on this already, but setup would you use? Which setup, sorry? And is there any tips you could pass on that would help me locate the bigger ones? I know you said sort of location, knowing that they're in there, but is there anything else on top of that you could add?
So I would say keep an eye on the weeklies, like the Angling Times, keep an eye on social media. Lots of people post their pictures or send them in. It's the same big fish, same time of year, same swims or same areas, same venues. So it's not too difficult. And then did you say rig-wise as well?
Yeah.
So I've been quite a big fan recently of inline leads this year.
The hooking potential was fantastic.
And not a lot of people use them on the rivers. So I think that makes quite a big difference. So inline leads, line lay, and just use a really good strong tackle and a sharp hook and a good bait.
Fantastic. Last one for the questions from the viewers is from Ian Roper from Ringwood. And he said, do you have a favourite approach if you notice carp are in the river and you were to target them? What would you do? How would you approach it?
I would, if you could see them, I'd use your eyes. I think that's one of the most important things that we have.
Same sort of rigs that you're using for the barbel, just keep it fairly similar?
Yeah, and keep it strong. They fight hard, and use reliable kit, but mainly, and if you can get away with trickling a bit of baiting in, but just use your eyes.
What kind of pound line would you use? What line are you using, for example, for your barbel fishing on the Avon?
I use our 12-pound Hydro Tough.
Right. Is it sort of abrasion resistance and just the overall?
And it's just bulletproof. Yeah. So again, you're just using quite strong gear, but you're using stuff that you know is not going to let you down.
Okay. So I think one of the things from my side of things is carp fishing is obviously key to a lot of our viewers and everything else. So you recently went on a trip to France for the Gardner Social with some very, very, very good anglers. So tell us a little bit about the trip. How did you get on? And
it was really good. So my friend Pete Rosario bought a place in France recently over COVID with his friend called Martin, and they very kindly invited us over there. Beautiful place. We fished Lac Baleine. Amazing place. It's got everything. The facilities are amazing. It was perfect for what we wanted, and it has great stock of fish. It was an amazing week. It was mainly, we did it to sort of see some of our foreign guys, foreign teams, meet French guys, guys from Benelux. Had some great barbecues, loads of lovely food, and we all caught some amazing fish.
Brilliant. What was the sort of size of the fish you caught out there?
I think I had 18 for the week.
Oh, wow.
One 24 hours, it was really productive, a few 40s chucked in. It was just amazing fishing. Great for the filming aspect. We had people like Dave Lane there who was doing a barbecue, and it was just a fantastic time, but a lovely, lovely venue.
Brilliant. And what sort of approach did you adapt for your fishing for that week?
I just use small traps, so that's a tactic I often use. You just use your eyes and put rigs where there's fish, and I use very little feed that week, and just use small traps of boilies, 20, 30, just enough for a bite.
So were you up at first light sort of looking for them, or were you sort of setting little traps around the margins and visiting them throughout the day?
Just mainly just seeing where there was any activity, bubbles, fish showing, and then putting a rig on.
Brilliant stuff.
But a lovely, lovely place.
So one of the questions I wanted to ask, is there anything new that's coming out from Gardner that's coming out shortly? So in terms of the carp and specialist side of things?
Yeah, so we've been working quite hard on the specialist range. We've got a fantastic team that have been really, really useful. They're out and out anglers, so they're on the bank all the time or regularly. They're out there doing it, so it's the perfect people we've got to test products. So we've got some really exciting stuff coming through, hopefully for the spring and the summer. On the carp side, they've released loads of really nice products. Really
I've seen
nice
a few
stove.
kind of nets coming out and all sorts of stuff. Fantastic.
Nice nets. We've had a nice new stove that's come out that's really well priced.
Well, I've got to say at this point to our viewers, if you need a sleeper bag, the Carp duvet they do is a game changer. It is, I thought it was nice and cosy than the one I had before. This thing's it's insane. Well, listen, Alan, thank you for taking the time out of your day. Good luck with your angling. It sounds like you don't need any luck the way you're going, but we appreciate your time. Thanks for coming on.
Cheers, Steve.
Thanks.